Welcome to Superhero Pow. I'm your host nerd, Tom Fremgen. And it's time once again for the Best Cartoon Award Show, where we hand out fictitious trophies to great cartoon shows of years gone by. As always, we will be rewarding the best action show, the best comedy show, the best new show, and the dreaded worst new show. And also, if there's enough of them, the best primetime or adult cartoon show. Today we'll be looking at 2006. 2006 was a bit of a crazy year. Saturday morning cartoons were giving it their best push to stay relevant because cable TV was just starting to really crush them. Within the next 7 years, one by one, all 5 networks would stop showing cartoons on Saturday morning. But their loss seems to have been PBS's gain, as they would continue to get more and more cartoon shows. And I'll warn you, this season is a pretty big season. There were 36 new kids shows and 25 returning cartoon shows. For the adults, there were about 7 new shows and 7 returning shows. And that's a lot of shows. So let's stop jawing and run down the list. Starting with Fox, they had the return of Biker Mice from Mars, just proving that any cartoon can come back from cancellation. After 65 episodes in the 90s, the boys from Mars would return to Earth to fight evil cat aliens for another 28 episodes. Next was the CGI animated show Viva Pinata by Bardell Entertainment. It was launched in collaboration with the Xbox video game of the same name. The cartoon was basically a fanciful show of what piñatas do when they're not getting beaten up at parties, which was not seen as a bad thing. Next was the anime Yu-Gi-Oh! Capsule Monsters. But it wasn't part of the official Japanese Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. Capsule Monsters was a 12-episode miniseries specifically created for kids' entertainment, who had been programming Fox's cartoons since 2002. And it was the only newish anime show this season. Next was Chaotic, another synergy show by Bardell Entertainment, although, 4Kids was producing all these shows, which was based on an online card game invented in Denmark. The rather painfully obviously animated in Flash, now known as Adobe Animate, show was about kids playing the game Chaotic while actually becoming the monsters in a virtual world. For returning shows, Fox, or 4Kids Entertainment, had the 3rd season of The Winx Club, a 2nd season of G.I. Joe Sigma 6, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Flash Forward, which was the 6th season of the 2nd series of the famous Ninja Turtles. It was also a lighter retooling of the more serious first 5 seasons. Lastly, they had reruns of the CGI show Bratz, which wouldn't get its 2nd season until 2008. Moving over to the WB, or rather now the CW, they had 4 new shows, starting with Monster Allergies, a European cartoon based on an Italian comic book, which basically visualized monsters that were causing allergies, and our heroes, with allergies, had the abilities to see these invisible monsters and fight them. Next was Tom and Jerry Tales by Warner Brothers, and the 4th TV show based on the cat and mouse team, though it was the first time where they could really go at it just like they did in the old theatrical shorts. And as he passed away during production, it's said that this was the last cartoon overseen by their co-creator, Joe Barbera. Another Hanna-Barbera staple, now being animated by Warner Brothers, was Shaggy and Scooby-Doo Get a Clue, which was the 10th series for Scooby-Doo. Though this show didn't feature monster mysteries or even Fred, Velma, and Daphne. It focused more on Shaggy becoming super rich and battling the evil Dr. Phineas Phibes. Why not? After about 40 years, you gotta try something new, right? Next was Legion of Superheroes, again by Warner Brothers, which featured the DC Comics teenage superheroes from the future. The series was about the Legion recruiting their inspiration, Superboy, from the past to join their team in the future. Because, seriously, did you think Warner Brothers was going to give the Legion of Superheroes their own show without Batman or Superman being involved? Anyway, sci-fi supervillain battles ensued. Now, for a somewhat new show, Kids WB also had Crypto the Superdog, which had started airing on the Cartoon Network earlier this year. For returning shows, they had Johnny Test and the Bugs Bunny superhero show, Lunatics Unleashed. Both were in their second season. And The Batman was in its third season, which featured Batgirl. Seems they couldn't use Robin because he was just wrapping up the Teen Titans show? Lawyers. And for reruns, Kids WB on the CW only had one, Shaolin Showdown. Now ABC had become a dumping ground for Disney Channel's live-action shows, with That's So Raven in her third season, The Sweet Life with Zack and Cody in their second season, and Hannah Montana in her first season. And lest we forget, now that Disney owned the rights to them, appearing in their 12th straight season, Power Rangers, Mystic Force this time around. But ABC and Disney had two new cartoons, The Emperor's New School, which was a spin-off of their feature film from 6 years ago, The Emperor's New Groove. The show, of course, featured all the kids back when they were in high school, because Disney just can't get enough of kids in school shows. And then there was The Replacements, about a sister and brother who had the ability to replace anyone in their lives, starting with their MIA parents, or anyone else they didn't like, with hilarious consequences. Or rather, they just learned a lesson. Now to CBS. Sans Nickelodeon had teamed up with Deke Entertainment to program their Saturday mornings, which of course meant all the shows would be made by Deke, including reruns of their 1990s cartoon based on the famous book, Madeline. They also had reruns of Sabrina, the animated series, and Trolls. Talk about phoning it in. They did have one new cartoon show, Horseland, which was about a bunch of kids going on adventures with their horses at the Horseland stables. And real quickly, they did have two new live-action shows on the Cookie Jar TV block, the game show Dance Revolution, and the kids with their own crafting TV show, Cake TV. Neither would see a second season. And lastly, NBC, now Sans Discovery, had Cubo programming their Saturday mornings. You can see the trend of networks not even wanting to be involved in programming their Saturday mornings anymore. And Cubo would program nothing but reruns, starting with another 1990s cartoon based on the famous books, Babar. They followed that up with several shows first seen in Canada, like Jacob Tutu, Jane the Dragon, and Just Dragon, which was a claymation show in between its second and third season. I'll also add that Dragon was created by Dave Pikey, the guy who created Captain Underpants, and in 2011, he would bring us Dogman. Truly, Dave Pikey is the modern-day Shakespeare of kids' books. NBC Cubo would also tap Big Idea's library of direct-to-VHS and DVD computer animated series, like Larry Boy, 321 Penguins, and the big ratings winner, VeggieTales. This was the first time those shows would air on TV, with some new shows sprinkled in as they would go. And that was it for Saturday morning cartoons. Now over at PBS, they pulled out a big ratings winner of their own, Curious George, of course based on the famous books about the curious and forgetful little monkey who would get into all sorts of trouble with the man in the yellow hat there to help him out. The show debuted along with its big feature film counterpart and would run for 15 seasons. PBS would also debut the animated/live-action game show Fetch with Ruff Ruffman. That would only run a mere 5 seasons. For returning shows, PBS still had Arthur in its 10th season, Maya and Miguel in their 5th season, Cyber Chase in their 5th season as well, Kailu was in his 4th season, Jakers, The Adventures of Piggly-Winks was in its 3rd season, and Fran Feet, which was first seen in Canada. Lastly, there was Bob the Builder in a 2nd season, but he was actually in season 13 in the UK. All right, that certainly was a lot of shows, but we're kind of only halfway done. Sweet Jeebus, because now we have to move over to cable. Starting with the Cartoon Network, they only had a few new shows, starting with the Fantastic Four, World's Greatest Heroes by Marvel and Moonscoop, featuring Marvel's first family of comics before Disney bought them all up. Next was the musician Andre 3000's Class of 3000, which was about school kids getting into typical hijinks as well as getting a musical education. Then there was Squirrel Boy, created by Everett Peck, a prolific illustrator and animation artist. The show was about a boy, Andy, and his squirrel, Rodney, who is crazy and just a bad influence on Andy. Lastly, they had the Connor and Sparky Show, which was about a boy named Connor who worked for the entertainment agency with his talking dog, Sparky. They would get into typical misadventures with their manager girlfriend Tabitha and Cindy the robot. For returning shows, the Cartoon Networks had The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy in their 6th season. Codenamed Kids Next Door was in their 6th season as well. Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends was in its 4th season. Ben 10 was in its 3rd season. The Life and Times of Juniper Lee was in her 3rd season as well, as was Camp Lazlo. My Gym Partner is a Monkey was in its 2nd season, and Robot Boy was in between its 1st and 2nd season. As for the anime on Toonami, they had Pokemon Battle Frontiers, Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, Naruto, Zatch Bell, and One Piece. Moving over to Disney, they had 2 new, very Nickelodeon-like shows. With Yin Yang Yo, which was about a sister and a brother rabbit trying to learn the mystical arts of Wu Fu. Yin focused on magic, and Yang focused on fighting, and both caused trouble for Master Yo. Then there was the anthology show Shorty McShort Shorts, which was filled with a lot of fun concepts, though Shizao from the 2nd season was the only one ever to get its own series. Then, not counting the shows that were also on ABC, the rest of Disney's new shows were for smaller kids, like Handy Mandy, where Mandy and his box of tools would yell, "We fix it," and then fix whatever is broken this time. Next was Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, where Mickey and the gang would go on problem-solving adventures. And then some mini-shows like Feelin' Good with JoJo, where the stop-motion clown would talk about feelings, and Lou and Lou's Safety Patrol, which tried to teach small kids how not to get hurt. For returning shows, Disney had the 3rd and final season of JoJo's Circus, and American Dragon Jake Long, which was in its 2nd and final season. Over at Nickelodeon, they kinda just had Kappa Mikey, which was a show designed to poke fun at anime, as an American nerd Mikey moved to the anime cliché Japan to have ill-conceived comical adventures. For little kids, they had Wonder Pets, the pretty much cut-out picture animation show of 3 small pets going on rescue missions. And then Wow Wow Wubsy, where 3 anthropomorphic animals, Wubsy, Widget, and Walden, would go on simple adventures. Nickelodeon also started to produce 1 hour, that's 44 minutes plus commercials, specials of Holly Hobby and Friends, which was an update of the late 60s, 70s marketing concept from American Greetings. So much for the plain rustic look. As for returning shows, Nickelodeon had Dora the Explorer in her 4th season, As Told by Ginger in her 3rd and final season, Danny Phantom was in his 3rd season, Backyardigans were in their 2nd season, Go-Go Diego was in his 2nd season, Fairly Odd Parents were in between their 5th and 6th season, and the astonishingly good Avatar: The Last Airbender was in its 2nd season, when the Earthbender Toph joined the group. Moving over to the Discovery channels, they had Bigfoot Meets Meteor and the Mighty Monster Trucks. No guessing on what that show was about, as they crammed it all into the title. I'll just mention that it was a CGI show where the trucks could talk. Side note, Pixar's Cars came out this year too. They also had Growing Up Creepy, which was about a middle school girl named Creepy, who was raised by a family of anthropomorphic bugs. Sadly, neither show would get a 2nd season. Then on Starz, they had another one-season wonder, Eloise, the animated series, which is based on the famous book series of the little girl who I'm told is only good when she is in bed. And in 2006, a new cable channel debuted, Baby's First TV. You all remember that, right? It was TV shows for babies, which I can't really say I approve of. But they threw down 5 new cartoon shows for babies: Bonnie Bear, Foodie Fables, Peter's Paintbrush, Rainbow Horse, and Wonderbox. Anybody out there watch these? Okay, we're done, right? No, we got to cover all the adult shows or primetime shows. Well, of course, on Fox there was all their continuing shows. The Simpsons in their 18th season, King of the Hill was in between season 10 and 11, American Dad was on season 3, and The Family Guy was on season 5, or their 2nd season after coming back from cancellation. Now, if you noticed something weird, it's because American Dad's so-called 1st season was only 7 episodes, and it came out in the same year, 2005, as the 2nd season. So by 2006, it was on its 3rd season already. On cable, the heavy hitter, of course, was Adult Swim, with returning shows like Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, in his 4th season. Then there was 12-Ounce Mouse, Squidbillies, and Moral Oral, all in their 2nd season. The very noteworthy Adventure Brothers was in between their 2nd and 3rd season, and the equally noteworthy Boondocks was in between their 1st and 2nd season. But of course, the Adult Swim had new shows as well, starting with Assy McGee, a parody of buddy cop shows featuring Assy, who is a anthropomorphic ass, and then there was Minority Team, a Jack Kirby-inspired team of racist stereotype superheroes. Shocking that it didn't get a 2nd season. Then there was Frisky Dingo, another parody of superheroes featuring the villain Killface and the hero Awesome X, which did get a 2nd season. But their biggest hit of the season has to be Metalocalypse, which lasted 4 seasons, about a ridiculously popular and destructive death metal band. And while Comedy Central was still killing it with South Park in their 10th season, other cable channels had some one-and-done shows, like MTV2's The Adventures of Chico and Guapo, hapless interns at a recording studio who would also critique real television, kind of like Beavis and Butthead. It lasted 5 episodes. FX had Freak Show, which was about sideshow freak superheroes. It lasted 7 episodes. And G4 had Happy Tree Friends, which was a continuation of the popular internet cartoon from Mondo Media, which featured cute anthropomorphic critters getting horribly maimed, disemboweled, and just killed in general. It got a full 13-episode run. Okay, we can finally start handing out awards. Award shows are getting too long. Okay, the Primetime Adult Award goes to... Wait, what? All right, I have to explain a rule. It doesn't happen very often, but when everyone feels no new show is really worthy of getting an award, we give it to a returning show. Not reruns, there has to be new episodes debuting. And with that, you can guess it's probably going to happen a lot this year, as some new shows just aren't as good as what's already on. So with that, the best primetime/adult cartoon for 2006 is South Park. In their 10th season, they roasted Family Guy as Cartman tried to get it canceled, played Warcraft, and perhaps had the worst episode ever with Stanley's Cup. Now, the best action cartoon for 2006 is Avatar: The Last Airbender. What, did you think we were drunk? Of course it is. It's probably the best American-made action cartoon show ever made. You thought biker mice from Mars was going to walk off with this? No! Heck, the show's better than James Cameron's Avatar. Let's be real. Moving on. The best comedy cartoon for 2006 is Squirrel Boy. Yes, we could have easily given it to something like Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, but we gave a few bonus points for being the new kid on the block. Squirrel Boy is just a nice combination of kid wackiness with clever punchlines wrapped up in Everett Peck's unique style. Plus, the voice talent is top-notch with Kirkwood Smith, aka Red from That 70s Show, voicing Andy's father, who had no love for the boy's squirrel.
Words cannot describe what I think of your suit, so I'll make a noise.
And before we get to the best new show, here is the worst new show for 2006. Horseland. Now, we did hesitate giving this to Horseland because clearly the show is not made for superhero-obsessed boys. But in our defense, we were eyeing Bigfoot Presents Meteor and the Mighty Monster Trucks too. But that show is clearly aimed at little kids. And there's no such excuse for Horseland, with its below-average animation and paint-by-numbers, mean-girlish, banal stories.
At least I don't have swamp rats in my stall.
Rats? Ew! Did she say rats? Where?
Gotcha!
And finally, the best new show for 2006 is Legion of Superheroes. Warner Brothers had just become a well-oiled machine for great superhero shows, with Legion being led by one of their best talents, James Tucker, the man who would later give us Batman the Brave and the Bold. Just like Teen Titans, you got the fun moodiness of teenagers, plus the amped-up superhero sci-fi action, taking on classic villains like the Fatal Five, Starfinger, and adapting the classic Sun Eater story. Poor Feral Boy, I knew thee well. The Legion of Superheroes proved that Saturday morning cartoons still had legs.
Do you guys always have this much fun?
Pretty much.
Well, there you go. Animation production was off the chart back then. Makes me think we need to rethink how we cover these big seasons. Did you watch much of these shows? I know it was impossible to watch all of them. While I myself was still keeping tabs on Saturday mornings, I had kind of fallen off the Adult Swim bus. Yeah, I know I'm weird. Anyway, what a change since the beginning in 1966. And thanks for spending time with me as we stroll down memory lane. And if you can be so kind to like, subscribe, and notify, I promise not to explain my Bratz monster truck cartoon idea. You see, they're fashionable kids during the week, and on the weekend they drive monster trucks in the mud.